Inside the sleeper cab of a Freightliner Cascadia on the Dalton Highway in northern Alaska, a woman is getting ready for bed. It is 2 in the morning. The temperature outside is minus 50 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, exposed skin develops frostbite in 5 minutes, and the steel walls of the cab conduct cold inward like a refrigerator running in reverse. Thousands of women do this every week across Arctic highways in North America, Scandinavia, and Siberia. They haul fuel, lumber, and mining equipment to communities that would starve without them. But the way they survive the night is a system that took years to figure out, and almost none of it works the way you would expect. To understand what these women are up against, you need to understand what minus 50 actually does to a truck. At that temperature, the air itself becomes a weapon. Every breath you take outside pulls heat out of your lungs. Your nostrils freeze shut. Diesel fuel turns into a gel that will not flow through engine lines. The rubber seals around the doors become brittle and start to crack. And the factory insulation in a standard sleeper cab, which was designed for minus 10, maybe minus 20 on a rough night, is not even close to enough. Nobody at the Freightliner factory in Portland, Oregon was thinking about minus 50 when they designed the wall thickness. So the first thing experienced cold weather drivers do is take matters into their own hands. The women who run these northern routes year after year have turned cab insulation into a kind of folk science. They line the interior walls with closed cell foam panels, the same material used in walk-in freezers, cut to size and pressed into place behind the factory panels. They hang thermal curtains between the driving compartment and the sleeper berth, creating an airlock effect that keeps the smaller sleeping space easier to heat. Some use reflective windshield covers made of aluminized material that bounce radiant heat back into the cab instead of letting it escape through the glass. Others go further and stuff foam pipe insulation into the gaps around the door seals, the pedal openings on the floor, and every tiny crack where outside air can sneak in. One driver who runs the ice roads north of Yellowknife explained it simply. She said, "You are not heating the cab, you are sealing the cab. There is a big difference. Every square centimeter of air leak at minus 50 is like leaving a window open in your house in January. It does not matter how good your heater is if the cold has a way in." This is where the story takes a turn nobody expected, because even with perfect insulation, you still need heat. And heat is where things get complicated. Most modern long-haul trucks come equipped with auxiliary diesel-fired heaters. These are small units that tap into the truck's fuel tank and burn diesel to produce warm air independent of the main engine. They are the gold standard for overnight heating. Brands like Webasto and Espar dominate this market, and a good unit can keep a sleeper cab comfortable even in extreme cold for 8 to 10 hours on a few liters of fuel. But there is a catch. These units fail. They fail more often than you would think, especially in the conditions where you need them most. Extreme cold causes the fuel to gel. It causes the glow plug igniter to crack. It causes the intake vents to ice over. And when that happens at 2 in the morning on a highway with no cell service and no other vehicles for 100 kilometers in either direction, you have a serious problem. Some drivers carry portable propane heaters as backup. These work, but they come with carbon monoxide risk. Every winter, truckers die in their sleep from CO poisoning because they ran a propane heater in a sealed cab without proper ventilation. The experienced women who drive these routes know this. They carry battery-powered CO detectors, and they crack a window when running propane. But cracking a window at minus 50 defeats half the purpose. There are also 12-volt electric heated blankets that plug into the truck's battery system. These provide gentle warmth and are safe to sleep with. But they drain the batteries, and if you run them all night, you might not have enough power to start the engine in the morning. At minus 50, a diesel engine needs every amp it can get just to turn the starter motor. So the real answer to how these women stay warm is not any single piece of equipment. It is a system. Multiple layers of protection that stack together so that if any one of them fails, the others keep you alive. And this is the part where things stop being funny. The layering system starts with what goes on the body. Experienced cold weather truckers follow the same principles that Arctic explorers and military cold weather units have used for decades. Base layer, Insulation layer, outer layer. But getting any one of these wrong can cancel out the other two. The base layer sits against the skin, and its job is to wick moisture away. This is critical because sweat is a killer in extreme cold. Cotton absorbs moisture and holds it against your skin, pulling heat away from your body dramatically faster than dry air would. That is why every experienced driver will tell you the same thing: cotton kills. They wear merino wool or synthetic base layers that pull sweat away from the skin and dry quickly. But a dry base layer is useless without something to trap the warm air above it. That is where the insulation layer comes in. Down is the gold standard for warmth to weight ratio, but it has a fatal weakness. If it gets wet, it collapses and loses almost all of its insulating power. Synthetic insulation is heavier, but performs even when damp, and most cold weather truckers prefer it for exactly that reason. A good synthetic puffy jacket rated to -40, paired with insulated pants, creates a cocoon of trapped air around the body. Then there is the outer layer, which matters less inside the cab but becomes critical the moment you step outside. And you will step outside at some point. A windproof and water-resistant shell can mean the difference between a miserable 60-second bathroom break and a dangerous exposure event. Inside the sleeping berth itself, the bedding system follows the same logic. Experienced drivers use a sleeping bag rated to at least -30, placed on top of a foam sleeping pad that insulates them from the cold metal floor of the berth. That sleeping pad might be the single most underrated piece of gear in the whole system. Without it, the cold conducts straight through the mattress and into your body. You can have the best sleeping bag in the world and still wake up hypothermic if your back is pressed against a cold surface with no barrier. Some drivers add a fleece liner inside the sleeping bag for extra warmth and easier washing. Others layer a wool blanket on top. The point is redundancy. If one layer fails or is not enough, the next layer picks up the slack. But here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. Even with all of these layers, all of this insulation, all of this preparation, sometimes the cold wins. The heater dies at 3 in the morning. The temperature drops faster than expected. The truck breaks down on a remote stretch of highway and help is hours away. In those moments, the difference between a scary night and a deadly one comes down to what else you have in that cab. The smartest drivers, the ones who have been doing this for years, keep a compact emergency thermal bivvy within arm's reach. A popular one among truckers is the TerraShell, which packs down to the size of a soda can and weighs about 4 ounces. The reflective aluminized lining bounces your own body heat back toward you, essentially turning you into your own heat source. It works without batteries, without fuel, without electricity. You just climb in. A driver on a forum for women in trucking called it the best insurance policy she ever bought, because even if the heater dies and the batteries are dead and it is -50 outside, her core temperature stays stable until help arrives. Link in the description if you want to check it out. Now, even with the thermal protection sorted out, there is another entire layer of preparation that female truck drivers deal with that their male counterparts rarely think about. Security. Sleeping alone in a truck cab is not the same experience for a woman as it is for a man. The reality is that truck stops can be dangerous places, especially at night. Female drivers report harassment, unwanted knocking on their doors at all hours, and in the worst cases, attempted break-ins. Second, locks. Most sleeper cabs have factory door locks, but many women add secondary locks. Some install deadbolts. Others use simple but effective devices like a steering wheel club or a door brace that wedges between the door handle and the floor, making it nearly impossible to open from outside. Third, communication. Before shutting down for the night, most female drivers text their location and expected departure time to a trusted contact. A partner, a family member, a fellow driver. Some use GPS tracking apps that share their location in real time. The idea is that if something goes wrong, somebody knows where they are and when to start worrying. And this is the part that still does not make sense to a lot of people. After all of this preparation, after dealing with temperatures that can kill, After taking security precautions that nobody should have to think about just to sleep, these women still choose to do this job. They choose it year after year. They choose the freedom of the open road over a desk. They choose independence over comfort. And they get very, very good at it. The actual sleep routine, once everything is set up, has a rhythm to it that becomes second nature. The driver finishes her last driving shift and pulls into her chosen parking spot. She shuts down the main engine and fires up the auxiliary heater, letting it warm the cab for 15 to 20 minutes while she eats something warm. Soup in a thermos, noodles heated on a 12-volt cooker, instant oatmeal made with hot water from an insulated bottle she filled at the last truck stop. Eating before sleep is important because digestion generates internal heat, and starting the night with a warm stomach makes a noticeable difference. While eating, she seals the cab. Thermal curtains drawn across the front. Reflective covers on the windows. Door gaps checked. CO detector battery confirmed. She changes into her sleep layers, which are separate from what she drove in, because driving clothes accumulate moisture from the body throughout the day, and damp clothing at night is dangerous. Fresh, dry base layers go on. The insulated pants, thick wool socks, a fleece balaclava if the forecast is particularly brutal. She climbs into the sleeping bag on top of the insulated pad. She keeps a headlamp, her phone, and her emergency thermal bivvy within arm's reach. Water bottle goes inside the sleeping bag with her so it does not freeze solid overnight. Boots go into the sleeping bag too, or at least into a stuffed sack at the foot of the bag, because putting your feet into frozen boots at 5 in the morning is a special kind of misery nobody wants to experience twice. Then she zips up and waits. The first 10 minutes are the worst. The sleeping bag is cold, and it takes time for her body heat to warm the air inside it. She might shiver. That is normal. Shivering is the body's way of generating heat through muscle contraction, and it is actually a good sign. It means the body is fighting. Within 15 to 20 minutes, the trapped air inside the sleeping bag reaches a comfortable temperature and the shivering stops. At that point, if the cab insulation is good and the heater is running, the sleeper berth can stay at a livable temperature through the night. Sleep itself is different at -50 than it is in a normal bedroom. It is lighter, more interrupted. The body stays in a state of low-level alertness, monitoring for changes. If the heater cycles off or the temperature drops, experienced cold weather sleepers wake up before it becomes a problem. They learn to recognize the sound of the heater running and the silence when it stops. That silence wakes them faster than any alarm clock. Bathroom breaks are a whole challenge on their own. Some women keep a portable camping toilet inside the cab to avoid going outside at all during the night. Others layer up quickly and make fast trips outside, knowing that every second of exposure counts. The rule is simple: be fast. Be prepared. Do not go outside in your sleep layers because the moisture you bring back in will compromise your insulation for the rest of the night. The mental side of this is something that rarely gets talked about. Sleeping alone in a truck cab at -50, hundreds of kilometers from the nearest town in total darkness, is psychologically intense. The isolation is real. The silence is enormous. The wind outside sounds like something alive trying to get in. And the knowledge that a mechanical failure could turn a bad night into a life-threatening one sits in the back of your mind, whether you want it there or not. The women who do this long-term develop coping strategies. Some listen to podcasts or audiobooks as they fall asleep, the human voice providing a sense of company. Others call family before bed. Some meditate. Some journal. Some just accept the discomfort and push through it the way they push through everything else on the road. What they all share is a kind of quiet competence that does not announce itself. They do not post dramatic videos or ask for sympathy. They just handle it. Night after night, winter after winter. Morning is its own battle. Waking up at -50 means waking up to a cab that has cooled significantly during the night, even with the heater running. The inside of the windows are coated in frost from breath moisture. The air stings the face. Every movement out of the sleeping bag feels like a deliberate choice to be uncomfortable. The first task is getting the engine started, and there is nothing routine about it. Trucks parked in extreme cold overnight need block heaters, which are electric heating elements plugged into the engine block to keep the coolant warm. Without shore power at a truck stop, some drivers run their block heaters off battery banks or generators. Others use engine blankets, insulated covers that wrap around the engine block and retain residual heat. But if the block heater failed during the night, or if the batteries lost too much charge, this is where the morning can go sideways fast. Starting a cold diesel engine is not like starting a car. You turn the key and wait for the glow plugs to heat the combustion chamber. This can take 30 seconds or more at extreme temperatures. Then you crank it and hope. Sometimes it catches on the first try. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 attempts. Sometimes you need to call for a jump start because the batteries could not hold enough charge through the night. And calling for a jump start at -50 on a remote highway can mean waiting for hours. Once the engine is running, you let it idle for 20 to 30 minutes before driving. The oil needs to warm up and thin out. The transmission fluid needs to reach operating temperature. The air brake system needs to build pressure. Rushing this process at -50 can cause catastrophic engine damage, so you sit and you wait. While the engine warms, the driver changes back into her driving layers, packs up her bedding, checks her route, and eats breakfast. By the time she pulls out of the parking spot and onto the highway, 2 hours have passed since she opened her eyes. 2 hours of preparation just to get moving. And she will do it all again tonight. There is something worth sitting with in all of this. These women are not extreme adventurers seeking thrills. They are working professionals doing a job that keeps the supply chain alive in places where almost everyone else would refuse to go. They figured out how to sleep safely in conditions that would terrify any of us, and they did it through planning, preparation, and a stubborn refusal to let the cold win. The next time you see a long-haul truck rolling through a snowstorm on the highway, consider for a moment the person behind the wheel. Consider the sleeper berth behind them. Consider the thermal curtains, the insulated sleeping bag, the emergency bivvy tucked into the side pocket, the security locks, the CO detector, the frozen boots in the stuff sack, the water bottle kept warm against their body. Consider the fact that tonight, when you are sleeping in a heated house under a thick blanket, that driver might be parked on the shoulder of a frozen highway in the Arctic, doing everything right, and still falling asleep knowing that the cold is just on the other side of a few centimeters of steel. If you found this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this every week, the kind of stuff that keeps you watching longer than you planned. And if you want to see what the most dangerous trucking route on the planet actually looks like, that video is on screen now. Click it.